Welcome to the fire again. Here for the second part of the heist story? Well, take a seat and let's find out what happens next. How to screw up a well-planned heist, part 2. r/D&D stories, posted by Ovasser. To recap the cast of characters, DM, generally fair but an avid house rule maker. Definitely believes in having major long-lasting consequences to player character actions. Me, a human wizard, the brains of the group, and always tries to avoid conflict. Has an owl familiar. At the end of part 1 was hiding in the dig site and trying to use her owl to figure out what was going on. Warlock, the socially awkward one in real life, who has an 18 charisma Azamar in the game, makes for some interesting moments, could definitely use more common sense as proven in this story, but we love him anyway, no hate please. At the end of part 1 was running out of the dig site and back up the road to a village, being pursued by guards and magic users. Rogue, sneaky tiefling, does his job well, which in this case is to steal things. Too bad he got royally screwed over in this instance. At the end of part 1, he had run off alone to hide. Ranger, not the smartest, but always handy to bring with you for the pass without trace effect in a heist situation. An elf, if you were interested. At the end of part 1, he had run off alone to hide. Cleric, orange tiefling who didn't really make it into the first part of the story since he was at our base camp for most of it, but he used create food and water to make himself a mound of hot pockets to sleep in, and I feel the need to tell the internet this fact. At the end of part 1, he had noticed that something was up, since there was a bunch of people chasing one of his group members out of the dig site. So, the warlock ran into the village, and long chasing short, got himself captured. I'll put the details of how at the end of this part. Meanwhile, the rest of the party is trying to figure out what to do, because we had all been separated. The ranger's piece of the story is pretty simple. He concealed himself well and waited it out until he was later found by me, the wizard. The rogue managed to climb a massive cliff to where the Mirage Order's base camp was in order to hide and hopefully complete the actual mission of finding artifacts. Priorities, man. I, the wizard, decided that I had to do something. I took the path up towards the Mirage Order base camp, and when I saw a group of people coming towards me with torches, I disguised myself as a member of that group that we had met previously. My hope was that I would be able to fool them into letting me be in their camp, and that way I could carry out some espionage and thievery in my own way, as well as be able to leave when I wanted to without suspicion. Unfortunately for me, my charisma is not good, and I rolled very poorly on my deception check to lie to the leader of this group, who happened to be the leader of the entire operation. But luckily, I am a divination wizard, and one of my important rolls was a natural one, which I had been saving for just such a moment. The DM ruled that she, the Mirage Order leader, had a minor aneurysm and was thus unable to see through my terrible deception. I was allowed to make my way up to the base camp unaccompanied. Meanwhile, the rogue has been having some decent luck with his stealth and has managed to cut his way into one of the tents that they were keeping artifacts in. Despite guards all over the place, he begins to ransack the place, putting everything that looks vaguely magical into a bag of holding. He makes it into another tent, stabs a guard inside with a sleepy juice poison, and almost goes into a third before the guards start to get suspicious due to one poor stealth roll. When they do, he drops to the ground and rolls himself in mud in order to blend into his surroundings. By some incredible measure of luck, he crawls away into the woods to wait out the rest of the night despite guards swarming all over the area. Gotta love expertise in the stealth skill. Now, I was hiding in plain sight among the Mirage Order people. Because they assumed I was a guest of their leader, they let me do pretty much whatever I wanted. The leader even offered to let me sleep in her tent since she was going to be up all night dealing with the incursion and trying to find the culprits. I decided to take her up on the offer and pilfer what I could from it. I found a few spells to add to my collection and settled down to sleep, with my face turned to the wall and covered up so when my spell ran out, it would not reveal me. And so the ranger hid in the dig site quite easily. The rogue almost froze himself to death after being soaked in the rain, covered in mud, and being unable to light a fire to warm himself in the woods. When morning came, I redisguised myself and left the camp. I decided to use my owl familiar to hunt down where the ranger and the rogue might be, because I knew there was no chance of them making it out of the dig site unseen. I found the ranger relatively easily because he was still near the library building where everything had exploded in the first place. I used my familiar to lead him towards my hiding spot in the woods. Then, once we had been reunited, we made our way back up the path where I knew the rogue was hiding in the general area since I had seen him earlier when he was ransacking the tents. While on the way to find the rogue, I rolled a natural 1 on stealth despite the ranger's pass without trace spell. Our wonderful DM decided that there were 2 guards playing cards in the woods, and I walked straight into them. I don't know why they were playing cards instead of doing their job, but it was funny nonetheless. I panicked and did the only thing I could think of, which was to cast sleep at 3rd level. 2 snoozing guards later, we made our escape and hoped they wouldn't remember our faces. I think the ranger even swapped their hands in the game to further mess with them. After some more searching, we found the rogue huddled up in a little cave. He had frostbite on his fingers, but was very pleased with his accomplishments in stealing things. We warmed him up and began to plan how we would reunite ourselves with the cleric who we hadn't seen since things fell apart. Now to tell the story of exactly how the warlock ended up being captured. So, he was running with maybe a 50 or 60 foot lead on his pursuers, who were mostly guards and 1 or 2 mages. One of the mages cast haste on a guard who caught up with the warlock in 2 rounds. Then the guard threw a bead of force at the warlock, trapping him in a bubble for easy retrieval. What they didn't know is that the warlock has a very powerful magic item on him called the Bag of Randomness. Essentially, you could reach into the bag and pull out a random object determined by a D100 roll. This object can be either really good, really bad, or somewhere in the middle. Our DM has told us that an army of 50 skeletons is one of the things that can come out of the bag. The warlock decides that he is going to use the bag as a last-ditch effort to gain the upper hand. However, the item that the warlock pulls out is a magic sword. Very nice, but he would have to attune to it before it would be any use. So the rest of the guards gather around and grab him when the bubble pops. He is captured and taken back to the dig site. This is the end of part 2 of this story. I will link the final part when I finished it. I hope you enjoyed reading. Usually splitting up isn't a good idea, but it seems to work out for this group. Mostly. Also, Gotta love that expertise with the stealth skill for rogues, and divination wizards are really useful in situations such as this. Fingers crossed for the warlock. And that's our story. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more future content. Also, if you would kindly follow the socials posted in the description, that would be amazing. As always, be good, be great, be awesome.